Kevin Stefanski benched Shedeur Sanders in front of the entire world. And now, the Cleveland Browns are international laughingstocks. It wasn't just a bad loss. It was a spectacle of dysfunction, live from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. A 21-17 defeat against the Minnesota Vikings that exposed the Browns' deepest cracks and made sure every camera, commentator, and casual viewer saw it. Instead of showcasing rising talent, the Browns trotted out Dillon Gabriel as the starting quarterback, despite weeks of rumors, clear on-field struggles, and reports from inside the locker room suggesting Sanders was more than ready. But the Sanders snub wasn't some last-minute coaching whim. It was the latest symptom of a franchise swallowed by ego, power struggles, and flat-out bad decision-making. Kevin Stefanski's loyalty to Gabriel is baffling on paper, but behind the scenes, it's been quietly fueled by contract politics, locker room favoritism, and fear of losing control. According to league insiders, performance bonuses and contract clauses played a role in Gabriel's continued starts, while Sanders, despite his marketability and off-field clout, was left stewing on the bench. And then there's the optics. International fans and analysts unfamiliar with the Browns' usual mess didn't need context. They saw a clearly talented quarterback pacing the sidelines in frustration, while Gabriel underperformed at key moments. The British media didn't hold back, either. They called it out for what it was: strategic malpractice. In their eyes, this wasn't just a bad decision, it was organizational sabotage. Ownership is reportedly livid. With mounting backlash across both continents, the pressure is boiling over. Fans, players, and now even former players are openly questioning Stefanski's decision-making, especially with playoff hopes slipping away. And it's not just about one game, it's about a franchise that keeps choosing pride over progress. The Browns went to London to grow their brand. Instead, they broadcast their dysfunction to a global audience. And now, the whole world is watching the fallout. You lose a game on the international stage, and that's one thing. But when you do it while benching your most promising quarterback for reasons that seem more like a grudge than a game plan, that's when things start looking less like a football game and more like a PR disaster. The Cleveland Browns flew across the Atlantic for what should have been a showcase moment, an opportunity to prove themselves on a global stage at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London. Instead, they gave fans a masterclass in dysfunction, losing 21-17 to the Minnesota Vikings and setting off a firestorm of backlash that crossed continents. But let's be honest, no one's still talking about the final score. The real story is what didn't happen. Shedeur Sanders didn't play. Again, despite being healthy, talented, and reportedly lighting up practices, Sanders stood on the sideline while Dillon Gabriel struggled to deliver. And it wasn't just a questionable coaching decision. It was a full-blown organizational meltdown. Every second Sanders remained on the bench turned the Browns' season from rocky to ridiculous. Let's be clear, this isn't just about a quarterback decision. This is about pride, power, and the kind of behind-the-scenes chaos that makes fans wonder if anyone in the building actually wants to win.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Kevin Stefanski's refusal to play Sanders, even as Gabriel floundered in high-pressure moments, felt less like strategy and more like stubbornness. And if you're thinking this might be about ego, internal politics, or some contract clause no one's talking about, you're not alone. Sanders didn't come to Cleveland as some scrub. He came in with expectations, with buzz, with talent that screamed future franchise QB. But instead of letting that talent speak on the field, the Browns buried it under layers of excuses. And now the whole world is asking, why? Fans in the UK, most of whom don't know the ins and outs of the Browns' quarterback drama, still looked at that field and asked the same question we all are. What is going on in Cleveland? This wasn't just a football loss. This was a reputational gut punch. For the Browns, this game was supposed to be an opportunity to impress international audiences, sell some merch, maybe pick up some new fans. Instead, they handed Europe a front-row seat to the very dysfunction that's plagued them for years. Let's talk about Dillon Gabriel. Solid guy. But when you're consistently underperforming and still getting the nod while your backup QB sits fully suited up and ready, people start raising eyebrows. Gabriel had moments, sure, but not the kind that win games or inspire confidence. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, someone with arm strength, mobility, and leadership instincts, was iced out. Not because he couldn't deliver, but because someone upstairs refused to let him. And that's where it gets ugly. This wasn't a football decision. It was a business move, a political move, a prideful flex disguised as strategy. From what's been reported, it seems Stefanski, and potentially others in the organization, have dug in their heels. There are whispers of contract issues, performance escalators, and guaranteed money tied to Gabriel that might explain his continued starts. But even if that's true, is any of it more important than actually winning games? Let's talk about how this looked from the sidelines. Sanders, frustrated but composed, sat there watching a winnable game slip away. And he wasn't alone. Cameras caught other players exchanging looks. Fans in the crowd started chanting his name, and the broadcast team didn't hold back on questioning the logic. It was clear to everyone in that stadium, and millions watching, that the Browns weren't just losing. They were actively sabotaging themselves. And the backlash was instant. Social media lit up. Analysts on both sides of the Atlantic shredded the Browns' decision-making. Viral clips of Sanders looking dejected on the bench made the rounds with captions like "Free Shedeur," and Cleveland's self-destruction tour continues. British commentators, new to the Browns' unique brand of chaos, compared it to a soap opera. And the NFL's international expansion team? Let's just say this wasn't the advertisement they were hoping for. Even more telling? The locker room vibe after the game was tense. You could feel it. Players avoided certain questions. Stefanski stuck to vague answers, brushing off concerns like it was business as usual. But anyone paying attention knows it's not. You don't fumble a game like that under a microscope that big and come out clean on the other side. Then there's the elephant in the room. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback, he's a brand. A name. A future face of the league, if handled right. He has the skill set and the media presence to be a franchise cornerstone, not a benchwarmer. And yet, the Browns are letting all of that potential rot on the sideline. Why? Because someone in the organization refuses to admit they were wrong. Wrong about Gabriel. Wrong about game planning. Wrong about whatever behind-the-scenes politics are driving these decisions. And the longer they double down, the more credibility they lose. Ownership has reportedly taken notice. And they should. This isn't just a coaching issue anymore. It's an organizational crisis. You've got a fractured locker room, confused fanbase, angry media, and now global humiliation on your resume. At some point, someone's going to have to take the fall. And if changes aren't made fast, that list could include Stefanski, members of the front office, and anyone else who thought this mess was sustainable. The stakes are higher than ever. Playoff hopes? Hanging by a thread. Locker room trust? Rapidly eroding. Fan patience? Practically gone. And now, with the entire world watching, the Browns can't pretend this is just a rough patch. This is a defining moment, and they're fumbling it in slow motion. And let's not forget the business side of things. Sanders brings more than just football value. His presence could boost ticket sales, energize the locker room, and give the fan base something to rally behind. His social media following alone could outmarket half the league starters. But instead of leaning into that upside, the Browns are clinging to outdated contracts and outdated thinking. The irony? If another team had the chance to play Sanders, you better believe they would. And you better believe he'd deliver. If Cleveland doesn't figure it out soon, they're not just going to lose games. They're going to lose Shedeur altogether. And then this disaster becomes irreversible. At this point, it's not about one bad decision. It's about a pattern, a refusal to adapt. A franchise so tangled in its own red tape that it can't see the field clearly. And if that doesn't change, the only thing Cleveland will be known for internationally is failure. Congratulations, Browns. You just turned an NFL international showcase into an international case study on how not to run a football team. And the fans? They're done waiting. They've watched this team cycle through quarterbacks, coaches, coordinators, and controversies. They've stood by through the bad seasons and the worst press conferences. But this is a whole new level of disappointment. If Cleveland wants to salvage what's left of this season and their reputation, they have to stop treating talent like a threat and start treating it like a solution. That means putting Sanders in the game. That means benching ego. That means making decisions based on football, not finance. Because right now, the only thing worse than losing on the field is proving to the world that you deserve to. So here's your final scoreboard. Browns 17, Vikings 21, organizational dysfunction 100. And for those of us watching, this isn't just another loss. It's a warning sign, flaring red for all to see. Let's just hope someone in Cleveland finally gets the message. If you're as baffled by this disaster as we are, drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Shedeur demand a trade? Is Stefanski cooked? And who's really calling the shots behind the scenes? Hit that subscribe button for more weekly meltdowns, because trust us, this saga isn't over. Oh, you thought the Browns' London debacle was just a bad game? No. That was a career-altering, franchise-defining, reputation-crushing spectacle. And the worst part? They did it to themselves. You've got a young, electric quarterback sitting there, while your offense stalls out in front of an international audience. Not because he's injured, not because he's unready, but because the coaching staff would rather stick with a guy who's consistently underwhelmed than admit they might have been wrong. Let's talk about Kevin Stefanski for a second. This is a coach who came in with high expectations, play-calling pedigree, a calm, calculated demeanor. But now, that calmness is reading more like detachment. That calculated approach? It's giving stubborn to the point of sabotage. Coaches are supposed to adapt. They're supposed to recognize when their plans aren't working and make a change. But Stefanski? He's digging his heels in while the entire season burns down around him. And for what? Loyalty to a quarterback who can't close? Fear of upsetting locker room dynamics that are already hanging by a thread? Or is this something even more toxic, like internal politics or a silent power struggle between the coaching staff and front office? Because let's be honest, no coach benches a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders in the middle of a high-stakes international game without something bigger brewing behind the scenes. There are whispers, and they're getting louder. Rumors of ownership meddling, of internal factions, of contract clauses that prioritize keeping Gabriel on the field to avoid triggering performance bonuses or roster guarantees. But at some point you have to ask, who's making football decisions in Cleveland? And are they even interested in winning anymore? Because right now, it looks like they're more interested in protecting egos and balance sheets than actually competing. And if you thought fans were mad back home, oh, just wait until you see the European reaction. British commentators were openly confused. You could hear the disbelief in their voices as Sanders sat untouched on the bench while Gabriel missed open receivers and struggled to extend drives. Even casual viewers, the ones who barely follow the NFL, were asking the same question. Why isn't the fast one playing? And the Browns had no answer. Not in the press conference. Not in the game plan. Not in the vibes. It was a total communications blackout, as if they thought stonewalling the media would somehow make the controversy go away. Spoiler, it didn't. The headlines wrote themselves. Cleveland's QB crisis goes global. Shedeur Sanders benched again as Browns collapse in London. NFL's most dysfunctional franchise just got more dysfunctional. It was a full-on media pylon, and frankly, they earned every headline. But let's shift to the locker room fallout, because this is where things go from bad to worse. There's only so long you can pretend everything's fine when half the team's frustrated and the other half is losing confidence in the leadership. Players aren't stupid. They see what's going on. They know who's performing and who's not. And more importantly, they know when a decision is being made for the wrong reasons. How do you rally behind a coach who won't play the guy giving you the best shot at winning? How do you trust an organization that seems more invested in covering its own mistakes than fixing them? You don't. And that kind of erosion doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, silent, and irreversible. You start seeing it in body language, in post-game interviews, in sideline interactions that feel a little too tense to ignore, in players doing just enough, but not more, not the extra, not the buy-in. Because why give 110% when the people in charge won't do the same? And this doesn't just affect one game. It bleeds into practice, into film sessions, into the off-season, into free agency. Suddenly, the Browns aren't just losing games, they're losing the locker room, the fan base, and their leverage with every potential trade, contract negotiation, or front office hire. This is what a slow collapse looks like. Now let's not ignore the business side of all this, because in today's NFL, football decisions are always tied to dollar signs. And Shedeur Sanders? He's a marketing goldmine. The name recognition, the pedigree, the viral highlights from college, the social media pull. You'd think the Browns would be tripping over themselves to get him on the field just to capitalize on the hype. But nope. They've decided to bench the one player who could actually make them relevant beyond Northeast Ohio. And you better believe that hasn't gone unnoticed by Sanders' camp. You think his team isn't taking notes? Every snap he doesn't get is a line added to the case file that says, let's get out of Cleveland the moment this rookie contract allows it. The Browns aren't just screwing up a quarterback rotation. They're actively pushing away a player who could have been the foundation of a new era. Let's throw this out there. If Sanders leaves, if he ends up on a team that actually builds around him, it'll be the Browns' biggest regret since the last quarterback they mishandled. You know, the one before that, and the one before that. It's like clockwork. And at this point, how many more red flags does ownership need before they hit the reset button? How many more fan revolts? More social media firestorms? More players side-eyeing the sidelines and wondering what planet the coaching staff is on? Because the writing's on the wall. Loud, bold, all caps. Play Sanders. Or lose the locker room, the fans, and possibly your job. But hey, if history is any guide, the Browns will probably do the opposite. They'll trot Gabriel out there again. Say all the right things in press conferences. Talk about competition and earning it, while ignoring the glaringly obvious fact that the best guy for the job is holding a clipboard. And then they'll lose. Again. Maybe at home. Maybe in another primetime slot. And the cycle will continue until someone at the top finally gets tired of being a punchline. Because let's be real, no team wants to be that team. The one where talent goes to die. The one where promising careers get derailed by front office politics and coaching rigidity. The one that becomes a cautionary tale every time a hot young QB hits the draft board. But unless something changes, and fast, that's exactly what Cleveland is becoming. This isn't about giving Shedeur Sanders special treatment. It's about recognizing reality. And the reality is, he's ready. He's capable. And he gives the team a better chance to win. Period. If Stefanski can't see that, or worse, refuses to, then it's not just a quarterback issue. It's a leadership issue. And that's how entire organizations go off the rails. Right now, the Browns are standing at a crossroads. One direction leads to adaptability, growth, and maybe a shot at salvaging this season. The other leads right into the same spiral they've been in for years. Controversy, collapse, and another round of firings, followed by a new era that looks suspiciously like the old one. And let's not forget who's watching. Not just fans, not just players, but agents, prospective coaches, future draftees, the league. Every decision the Browns make right now sends a message. And the one they're sending loudest? We don't reward talent. We protect pride. So here's a little unsolicited advice. Stop playing defense in the press room and start playing offense on the field. Stop managing egos and start managing wins. Because the clock's ticking. And if they don't figure it out, they'll wake up one day and realize the opportunity was there all along. And they let it rot on the sideline. Shedeur Sanders didn't lose them that game. He could have saved it. And the longer they keep pretending otherwise, the bigger the fallout becomes. At this point, even the most loyal Browns fans are starting to feel like they're being gaslit. Every week, they show up, hoping this will be the game the team gets it together. that this will be the week the coaching staff finally makes the obvious call. That Shedeur Sanders, this electric NFL-ready quarterback, they've somehow kept hidden like a secret weapon they forgot how to use, will take the field and shift the entire energy of the franchise. And yet, nothing. Just more awkward press conferences, more recycled coach speak, more missed opportunities, and more sideline shots of Sanders looking like he's been forced to watch his future waste away in real time. It's getting harder and harder to explain, even for the Browns themselves. The national narrative is turning. What was once a quarterback competition is now being openly mocked as organizational malpractice. Every analyst, every former player, every commentator with even a basic understanding of how momentum works in the NFL is saying the same thing: put the kid in. But instead of reading the room, the Browns seem determined to play out some weird internal drama, like we're all extras in a Netflix docuseries about sabotage. The vibe is less NFL franchise and more corporate office, where no one's allowed to admit mistakes. It's not even about hindsight anymore. It's not even about maybe they'll figure it out. We're well past that. This is just negligence. And the most painful part? It's so fixable. The solution is right there. Sanders isn't a gamble. He's not a long shot. He's a ready-to-go quarterback who has done everything asked of him, except somehow become less threatening to the egos in charge. And while the Browns stall out on the field and unravel behind closed doors, other teams are watching with popcorn in hand. Because if Cleveland won't use Sanders, someone else will. Someone else will develop him. Someone else will put him on a national stage, build around his strengths, and, worst-case scenario for the Browns, win with him. Can you imagine the headlines 2 seasons from now if Shedeur's lighting it up for another franchise? You know they'll be brutal. Browns blew it again. Cleveland's greatest fumble yet. Another star escapes the factory of failure. It'll be poetic and devastating. So here we are. The Browns could still make the right move. They could swallow their pride, shake up the depth chart, and rally behind a quarterback with the tools to actually take them somewhere. But will they? At this point, betting on Cleveland to do the smart thing feels riskier than a 4th and long on your own 10. So what do you think? Is this stubborn coaching or something deeper? Should Shedeur Sanders pull a move and demand his shot, or demand his release? Drop your take in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Because if this drama keeps up, we're all going to need front row seats for what happens next.